art, so you could go as to brushstroke close to, every, And I have to say, I mean, there's part of me that horrifies me, I have to say. But as long as this is why it makes the museums more important, because there still has to be a place where they can see the original. And if they go to a museum and see exactly what they saw on their laptop, surely museums have failed. You are the last place. I mean, 2 years ago, Alex Horwath, who's the director of the museum, Austrian Film Museum, he said, that museums have to be the place where film is protected. I have to say now I feel like it could also happen in cinemas too, but there was a point where it looked like the only place you would ever see a film projected would be in a museum. Now, there's a whole other area here we're not even talking about, is conservation and done digitally. Now, I know that within cinema, I mean, it's a big issue because, and actually it's Christopher Nolan he puts it very beautifully, is that our film is resolution independent. So if you don't protect the original, you will not be able to go back to it. And when we looked like we would lose contact with the original, we were so close to losing that thread, then what you would have been left with is a 2K version of the original. And our eyes have already evolved further than 2K. 2K now looks bad because we're used to 4K. And soon we're going to be used to, and by the way, that's double the information. It's not just, it's a lot of digital information, and people are drowning in it. So I understand access. I understand DVDs. I understand all that. But all I'm saying is that the museum has to be the place where you can still see the original. Everything else in our world is mediated. Posters, television, everything. But the museum is the place of the original encounter. And if that becomes the same, it's like Tarantino saying that cinema is now TV with other people. And it is TV with other people, especially if you go to an iPic. But the cinema, there has to be cinemas that show 30. And I have to say, when I first arrived in LA, 2014, his cinema, New Bev, was pretty empty. And now there are kids lining round the block. So it is coming back. That's, if you know that you can go and see a 35mm print, people will go there. It's proven. If this cinema shows 35mm prints, and that, down the road, the, multiplexes could show, people will come here who really, it's about education too. So as long as your museum is showing the original, I don't care if you're sending it out to, the world in that digital. I'm not, you see, this is another thing that really is difficult. I'm not anti-digital. I just think that digital has spent a long time, not in art, but in cinema, didn't start investigating what it had as, and this is an interesting word about, because I've started to use the word mediums, and I don't use media anymore. Mm-hmm. And I know you use media, but the reason I use mediums now is because media has been co-opted by digital in a way, and also by the press and digital, and now the press is digital. So, but mediums, bringing film closer to paint and is very important. So now I say I use mediums. I don't, people used to say she works in a variety of media, and I don't. I work with mediums. And when you say mediums, it brings it back to art in a way and takes it away from that, that digital elsewhere. That, so that's a part of the how political the language is around this subject. You stop saying it's old-fashioned. Stop saying it's obsolete. Stop saying it's nostalgic. It's not. It's a current medium. And this language is very, very important. And I actually do think that the language alone has done an awful lot of damage to film.
I don't think that people have really arrived at, the language that they're happy with around moving image art. I mean, it has so many names. There's time-based media. There's time-based media art. There's, mediums. There's, I mean, I could change my business card to the curator of mediums art. But I know a number of
Smithsonian
business
does
at the
that. That's a
Smithsonian.
big deal.
Yeah,
You know?
it would be hard to get government printed cards.
No, I mean, it's
No,
real.
No, I mean, they also call it, I know there are still curatorial positions that are referred to as new media, but it doesn't really, and there's photography and electronic media, and I mean, universities are dealing with this as well when they're establishing departments for, photography and electronic media, or is it art and electronic? I mean, there's so many different.
I'm kind of a post department. I think there should be, it should just all be one, I mean, there's always been that problem within art institutions. And actually even like, for example, collections like MoMA, there was the photography, there was, where do I go? I wasn't film actually because they've, and then I had a work that existed as a blackboard, a photograph and a film. And they couldn't cope with it because it went into, and they really did not know how to list it. And I'm thinking, it's all art. We know that. Why? And it's in education too. It's a bit of a problem within education.
Is,
if you're in the I was in the painting department. I never ever was in the media department. So, what does that say about me? I mean, I had to walk quite far to go and make my film, and I was an imposter. But I think it's, and then you arrive in France and they have no departments. And it's free. You can go and make a painting in the morning, you can make a film in the afternoon. And I actually think, for some time artists request that. We don't like being confined into departments. That we have to be post. You have to be post that now.
Right. We have time for.
Yeah, I think smaller museums have a better way of handling that. At MoCA, when MoCA was created, that was a big question. And it was decided that MoCA would follow what contemporary artists do today. They work in different mediums. And so MoCA never developed departments, and curators were always allowed to use any work in the collection in any way they wanted it. So it made territoriality a non-existent issue in the museum, and so it worked really well. It does remove ghettos, and so that's how MoCA worked.
Art has always been a bit of a ghetto.
I'd like to see if there are any other questions from the audience. Standing right next to this woman.
Hi. My name is Doris Berger, and I'm working for the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures that is in process of being built, as many of you know. And I really enjoy this discussion because we are facing a lot of these issues of how do we show film from 1918 in the exhibition space. It's 35 millimeter. You cannot show it in the same way as you want to show it sometimes. So we are trying to negotiate this with having screenings in film prints, in the movie theaters, but then having to make compromises and making facsimiles at times, where we want to make a point for a certain development that we want to show in the exhibition space. But it's something that just sparked the idea. I had a question for maybe any of you or all of you that hasn't been addressed yet with film exhibitions and video exhibitions. What is so important is also to be a choreographer of time, to think about the timing of everything and think about how can you have an experience for your audience that they can be enjoyable, but also challenged at times. But it's really a negotiation of these timing issues as well.
Well, I mean, two things on that. I always provide seats. I notice that a lot of people don't, but I really think, being able to, because I'm a cripple, I think it's very important to sit down to watch things. And if you have, I'm somebody who will watch from start to finish. And actually there's many more of me out there than you might realize. And I'm always surprised that people do watch my films from start to finish. But if there's no seat, I can't. And another thing I do, I know that my films have time in them to the extent that, for example, with Schaulager, I had 19 films. I think the collective length was far longer than one day. And so, I realized that with a bit of discomfort. So I managed to negotiate that the ticket that they had, they could come back again and again. And, and they always agree to that reluctantly. But it kind of works even if people don't come back, because somehow they feel that they can. It's a strange psychological thing. So there's two things I've got around the element of time, but also I never, I show other things. So there's always never that endless. But it is of course a problem potentially, if you think it is, see it as a problem. But I mean, what everyone here has to think about around the box with these things, to start finding ways to develop, systems for showing, for dealing with the original and then dealing with the facsimile and making it clear and not, cheating your audience to believe the facsimile is the original, which is what has been happening.
Well, in terms of timing, unfortunately, we have to draw this panel to the close, and I hope that we can continue these conversations over lunch and over the next weeks, and that this sparks something for you. Thank you.